Welcome to Feelings and Other F Words. We are back. So much has happened. I owe you all a handwritten apology note because I have just left you. I switched producers. We had a cancer scare in the family. We had kids stuff. We had house stuff. We had just stuff. That's no excuse, but we are back. So deeply, I appreciate every single one of you for sending notes of encouragement and asking me when this was going to be back. So I deeply appreciate all of you. And I mean that sincerely. I do. Today's F word feels kind of fitting in a lot of ways. And that's because we're talking about fallout and this idea of post-traumatic growth. Now, my guest, which many of you have already skipped over me talking, which I don't blame you, to get to her because she's so fantastic. She's so wonderful. She has billions of views between Instagram and TikTok. She has millions of followers. She is a content creator. She is an advocate. She's a mom. And I'm talking about Nicki Marie. She has an amazing podcast called Unplugged with Nicki Marie. Absolutely check it out. But there's something about her that was the perfect person to talk to about this because she has given the world a front row seat to her life unapologetically, talking about hard stuff, talking about things like her divorce, losing her job, parenting, and all the stuff that goes along with it, just day-to-day stuff. So our conversation, I cannot wait to get into it. It's just, she was the perfect person. I'm so, so grateful for her and the universe for allowing this to align. So anyway, let's get into the nerdy stuff. For those of you that are still here who haven't just jumped over to Nicki Marie because she's so wonderful, the nerdy stuff. What is post-traumatic growth? Post-traumatic growth is this idea that after bad shit happens, we can actually get better. Now, asterisk, underline, highlight, italicize, bold, whatever. Somebody's going to misunderstand me. I'm going to say it anyway, though. I am not saying trauma is not painful, whether that's capital T trauma or lowercase t trauma. I am not saying it's not painful. I am not saying it's not difficult. And what we're talking about with post-traumatic growth is not this false sense of positivity. We're not saying this too shall pass. Everything happens for a reason. No, absolutely not. Post-traumatic growth is when you do the deep work, when you process and you can come out on the other side with a different type of appreciation for life, with a different set of skill sets because you know now that you can do hard things. That's the thing about surviving, right? It makes you kind of dangerous in the best way possible because you know you can survive. And that is some powerful shit. So that's what we're talking about today. And this idea of positive legacy of trauma, as these two guys, Tedeschi and Calhoun, called it when they were coming up with this theory of post-traumatic growth in 1996, which feels like not that long ago, but I guess it actually is. And it's interesting because when you think about post-traumatic growth, right? Let's look at lowercase t, for example, lowercase t trauma. Inconveniences, right? Bad days, they also matter in growth. I had a fight on the internet with some lady whose screen name was Captain Poop Head or something, literally, because she said some shit about Jimmy, and you guys know how I feel about Jimmy. So I really usually don't respond to stuff, but I kind of lost it because it was about Jimmy, and he's an amazing man. So this idea of you got to settle yourself. These inconveniences are going to happen. You got to settle yourself and you got to move forward from it. You got to just grab a podcast mic and start talking about it out loud because that's helpful, apparently. But this idea of inconveniences being a part of our growth and development, I think is really worthwhile because we are constantly being shaped by our experiences. We are constantly having to change the story for ourselves, or we have to tell ourselves a story. Nobody's coming up with the story about our day or our life other than us. We are doing that. So Tedeschi and Calhoun, back to the nerdy stuff, they studied this. They're yes, you have to tell a story. And sometimes that story is one of redemption and growth. And they found that there were five different things that came out of this positive legacy of trauma. They found that personal strength was absolutely an indicator in this growth. People felt stronger about themselves, more convicted. There was a deeper appreciation for life. This idea of we are not here forever, or I'm here to make an impact. That also goes into that relationship with others that they found to be a part of post-traumatic growth, having deeper relationships or cutting out relationships that were toxic and not helpful and not aligned with who they were post-trauma. There was this idea of spiritual change and new possibilities. So everything that can come from trauma, right? Capital, lowercase, everything that can come from it isn't all bad. Again, I mean that with no disrespect, but I am saying that this research, I think, is wildly important for us to hear. Now, 2018, they did a study and they found that actually 53% of people who experience something traumatic are likely to achieve post-traumatic growth. So you have a 50% chance. There were some indicators, like if you were over 60, you had less of a chance, and if you were a man, you had less of a chance. So under 60 and a lady, you are definitely on the road to growth. But that's pretty cool because half of us can experience growth after bad shit. And it's not by chance. It's not by happenstance. It truly is by how we look at the world around us. My kids go to Montessori school. They come home all the time and they're like, I can do hard things. I fucking love that mantra. I use it all the time now. And I use it with my clients. I'm like, look at you doing hard things. Look at you. You can do this. You do hard things. You've done harder things. You can do this. It's such a wonderful thing to have as a prompt, as a narrative, as a mantra. And they found, Calhoun and Tedeschi, they found that growth happened in 4 different ways. And it wasn't by accident. It really wasn't. And you can actually lean into some of this stuff if you're going through something difficult to start to go on your healing journey, on your growth journey from something awful. The first thing they found was education had to take place, meaning there was this rethinking and challenging of our thoughts. We were educated about what happened, what was in our control, what wasn't, what it means, what it doesn't mean. And we were able to look at things through a different lens based in fact versus feelings, which I love. The other part of this is emotional regulation. So not only do I understand what's happening on a logical level, again, doesn't mean that I'm not feeling it, but like on a logical level, but this emotional regulation of I am managing the feelings around that come up, that will come up, that are bound to come up. I am not stifling them. I am not throwing them out. I am not letting them take over. I am managing them. It's kind of like having a toddler at home and they're having big feelings, right? And you're like, okay, I hear you, but you can't act that way, right? Like that's that other part of it. I'm not a gentle parent, so I don't think that's like gentle parenting. It's like, I'm going to love you and validate you. And we're also going to do the hard stuff of like, nope, you can be upset, but you are not going to hit me, right? Like that to me, we can do that to ourselves. That's emotional regulation. You can be upset, but we are not going to behave in a way that is hurtful. We're not going to do that right now. There's a better way. You have a choice. And lots of time trauma is about not having a choice, right? If you really think about traumatic stuff, it's about having your choice, your agency, your decision for a different path taken away from you. Whether that's something that happens just awful, like out of the blue, like a diagnosis, to somebody physically putting their hands on you in a way that you don't like, right? It like spans the gamut. But truly, it is about a lack of choice. And growth is about taking back choices where you can. So you have that education piece. You have the emotional regulation piece. Then there's this service piece, which I love Nicki Marie for, right? This service piece of being able to help and to connect with others. This idea that I can use my voice and I can use the messages that I'm learning actively to help other people, and thus other people validating and helping me. And that's why community and support systems are so wildly important. It's beyond important. Also, if you don't have that, or if you have people in your life that are the opposite of that, it is not going to help with your growth, right? Get rid of them aggressively. Occam's razor. Take them out, metaphorically. Then finally, you have this narrative development, this idea that how you tell your story 100% matters. There was it in Blink? Malcolm Gladwell's Blink? Maybe. Don't quote me because it's not in front of me. There was a study done about this guy who could look at couples and ask them to tell their origin story of how they got together. and with almost like 95% accuracy tell whether or not that couple would be together in X amount of years, right? Storytelling matters. How you frame a very important experience will tell you a lot about a person, but also will inform your brain of how you're interpreting a thing. They also did a study, again, I'm recalling it, it's not in front of me, so don't quote me, post 9/11, about how people story told about 9/11 and linking it to their mental health, X amount of months or years out. So people who told a story of Americans coming together and banding together, again, not saying it wasn't horrific, but the story about, support and redemption and, what we need to do next versus a tragedy, nothing's safe, no one's safe, obviously would lead to different mental health outcomes. Higher depression and anxiety in the group that felt like everything was going to shit, even if it was, right? Versus the group that was like, you know what I can control is this and what I can't control is that. I'm going to lean into the stuff I can control. So like, let's band together. Let's do stuff. Let's support our neighbors a little bit more. Again, completely paraphrasing both of these studies, so I could be wrong. But I do love this idea of never let a crisis go to waste. If something bad is happening in your life, it is okay to not be okay, just as much as it is okay to be okay at some point. Right? This idea that setbacks can actually be setups for the future is something I'm very big on, because it's not a matter of if something that's going to happen in your day that you don't like. It's a matter of when. And what you do with that 100% matters, which is why after the break, you're going to be hearing from Nikki Marie about everything she has done in her situations to set her up for where she is now. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Feelings and Other F Words. Today, we have a very, very special guest who has captivated millions, probably billions at this point, with her raw, authentic storytelling and unwavering resilience. Nikki Marie, known to her community as Nikki Unplugged or Nikki Marie Inc., depending on what platform you are, has openly shared her journey through some of life's toughest transitions, from career setbacks and financial fallouts to navigating single motherhood and finding herself after divorce. Welcome, Nikki Marie, to Feelings and Other F Words.
Thank you. And I love the intro. Can I borrow that for my own media kit?
You can have this.
Okay. Amazing. Written for me. Better than I could have ever done.
Done. It's yours. My gift to you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm excited. Today we're talking about fallout and this idea of failing forward and post-traumatic growth. And I love that you are that. Like, literally.
Yes.
There's nothing else about anything about those things that is not you.
It's true. And I haven't thought about it like that. And I don't, like the toxic positivity that we see sometimes.
Sure do.
I feel like if there's any toxic positivity, it's within me. And I don't know how to sprinkle that on other people, right? There's this ability to be like, I'm in the toughest scenario, but I can see the way out. And that's really all I want for my kids. And I don't know how to teach it.
But you do. You do.
Oh, gosh.
You really do. I mean, let's break this down. You were an athlete.
Yeah.
Field hockey, D1. How much of your athletic experience has led you to this mindset of tough but not toxic, or like, we can do hard things?
A lot of it has come from sports, for sure. But you got to put a kid, like, there's the kid first, right? The kid goes into the game and already has that. And you can't teach that. Like, I'm convinced, and I don't know, you're the doc. You can maybe teach us some things on this today, but I am raising my two kids this pretty much the same way. One's older, one's younger, one's a girl, one's a boy. But they're two completely different human beings in what drives them. And I have to wonder, was I just born to some capacity this way? My dad, he doesn't say much, but when he does, you're like listening, because you're like, wait, tell me more. And he said, I've just always had this like gift to just see things a certain way. So I don't know.
Interesting. And I'm sure, like, getting divorced, having all this other stuff happen, like, you had to dig pretty fucking deep.
Very deep. Still digging deep, girl. Still digging deep.
What is that like?
I think it's a mindset, right? And maybe there are these, you see a lot of podcasts that are about self-growth, motivation, inspiration. And when I listen to them, I'm like, how did I learn that? And I don't, to this day, I don't know the answers, because if I did, I'd be selling a freaking course on it. Right? I think the best thing I could say is I grew up with a lot of love, unconditional, show up every day love. And it was in the 80s, which I think was the best time to grow up. Mm-hmm. It was the neighborhood friends. It was the figuring shit out for yourself in the neighborhood. It was the girl stole my dollhouse toy and I wanted to take her out, but I had to self-regulate. Like, no adult was teaching me that. The neighborhood was teaching me a lot of that. But then my parents were there, my grandparents were there, and it was this like beautiful medley of like all the things. My mom, tough love, my dad, a bit softer and calmer. I just feel like I had this perfect medley.
Well, it's cool because everything I'm hearing from my chair is psychological safety. I was able to fail. I was able to get dirty. I was able to be messy, and I was still loved.
Yes.
And appreciated.
And they showed up for every freaking thing. I was so into Michael Jackson in the 80s that I was like, Mom. Now, when I tell you, like, athletic, but also super uncoordinated, and like went through this long, right? You first grow and you're like gangly. Right. So I went through this long phase, and I was like, I want to take break dancing lessons because it was cool. So she's like, go ahead. Horrible. And then I did like 2 classes in. I was like, oh, this is a lot of like trampoline stuff. I don't think this is really what I expected. Like, jam on it. It's not what I expected. But they let me go explore. Like Dora the Explorer. It was like Nicki the Explorer. And the ADD was fulfilled because it was like, I get to try this and just finish what you signed up for. And then you could try something else.
And that's the important part, right? You got it. Mama paid for 6 weeks of breakdancing.
You're going to 6 weeks.
You're going to 6 weeks of breakdancing, and then we can do something else.
Yeah.
I feel like today's day and age, I sound like an old fogey, but our kids are so structured. It's so planned out. Like, we want them. Kids now in 6th grade are ranked nationally for sports. Like, it's a different time than we grew up in.
It is. I want to pull back from that, though, because I have done the stuff of like, oh my gosh, we're pushing our kids too fast. They're trying too many things. They're involved in too many things. But if you really look at what we just said, we're doing the same thing just in today's world. We have to be easier on ourselves. Like, we're doing the best we can for our kids in the environment that's been given now. And I think I'm doing kind of the same stuff for Layla, just in a modern day world. Sure, you want to sign up for basketball, gymnastics, field hockey. You're going to have to figure out if those work for your calendar and if you've got the threshold to do it.
And the cool thing is, like, you're treating your kids, from what I see, right? You're treating your kids like an age-appropriate adult of like, you are co-signing on this with me. This is your life. I'm here to support you. I'm here to rah-rah cheer you on.
Yes.
Go breakdance, girl. But at the same point in time, like, I'm going to also tell you when you're messing up, or I'm going to give you a little bit of tough love, because that's the thing I find. A lot of people come to me and they're like, I don't know where the line is. Like, gentle parenting versus tough love. Like, what does that even mean? What does that even look like? And I love that on your page, you talk about that a lot.
Yeah, because I want people to feel like the thief of joy is comparison. And that's all we're doing online. And I don't mean to sound cliche, but I'm trying to reassure people that you're not going to have it perfect. Most of the people that are worried if they're doing it right or not, like, already the good parents. I'm convinced that the parents who are not worrying and not, it's like they're not there having these conversations.
Oh yeah.
Right?
If you think you're doing it wrong, you're probably doing it right.
Yeah. And you're trying to learn from people who have a certain skill set, right? It's like, you don't want to have conversations with someone who's exactly like you all the time. I look at my friends, I look at the pages that I'm looking at, and I'm like, I'm really good at this part of it, and I'm going to honor myself. And Nikki, you're good at this, but that doesn't mean you have to be good at all of the things. And it's similar to the sports mentality. As I was a sweeper in college, I could not push the ball out to my teammate on a corner shot the way my teammate could. Like, you can't do all the things.
And I think there's self-awareness there. I was just giving a lecture to the surgeons, because
Doc in the house. I was not giving lectures.
Listen, we need there's a lot of people that need a lot of help with this. But like, this idea of self-awareness, there was a study done that only 10 to 15% of people are actually self-aware. That's like mind blowing to me. Even though 95% of people said they were self-aware. So not only are we not self-aware, we're lying to ourselves about whether or not we are self-aware. So I think like everything you just said is like, this is self-awareness. Like, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not.
It's exhausting.
I
would like to be a little less self-aware.
I get that. I think there's something to be said about the burden of self-awareness, especially in parenting. Like I know when I'm messing up. How is it that, I want to kind of get back to like the fallout piece. What have you learned from going through things like your divorce? Like where did that take you that to where you are now?
There's the Gracie Abrams song right now, Made It Out Alive, and it's trending, right? And I literally tried to clip videos of myself to tell the story of like how hard it's been, but also how beautiful it's been. And I could not even look at the videos when it pulled together with the song because I was going to start bawling. So how hard it's been is like, for some God-given reason, we form this ability to like keep moving forward, even though when we have no psychological explanation of how. And that's the best way I can say it is you're put in a situation that you think you could never face. And I talked to my friend, big time adulting, Caitlin Murray, who's got a son who's a cancer survivor. And I say to her, how did you do that? And it's the same answer that I have about my divorce, right? You just do it in the moment. You're given no other opportunity except eye on the prize. My North Star was like my kids, to make sure that I made this as flowing for them as possible. I don't want to say normal, but just keep things like, don't let them see the storm.
Right.
So that, along with some reality, it's not perfect. I'm not going to paint it like it is. But when I watched that video, I had taken videos of myself in the moment because I didn't know if I was going to need them in court. I didn't know if I was going to need them in the divorce process. I didn't know if I was going to need them for my lawyer. And some of the videos, I was like, I can't believe where I was at. And it brought me right back, and I didn't want to go back there. So I think it's just this strength that we have as humans. I don't know if it's endorphin. What is it? It's just you do it.
Yeah.
But I know there are a lot of women who are in my inbox going through the first stages of divorce, or having lost a job, or having lost a husband, right, to death. And they're asking me how I got through it. And I don't know how, except you can do it.
Right.
You will do it. You have to have a will, and you have to have this like light at the end of the tunnel, right? And this vision.
That is so important, because in our like swipe right world, I think we give up on things really quickly, and like we don't want to focus on the negative. I mean, who does? But when you look at the research and the science, this like post-traumatic growth, it's a real thing. And sometimes you never ever get that lesson unless you go through the hard stuff, unless like it's there for you to like be able to look back at it and be like, oh my God, it was there all along, or I had no idea I was this strong or this capable, or I could do this stuff. Do you find that has helped launch your career online?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember being at, Mass Conference for Women, and I was on a panel talking about corporate stuff, and I would watch the keynote speakers. And I used to sit there and think, I want to be on that stage someday. Like I just had this internal feeling. It wasn't like a goal. It was just like, I have this feeling that I'm meant to do something bigger. And I could never, very intuitive thoughts, right? But never had a story, never had a real hard thing that I had to overcome. I really had this kind of perfect life. And I'll tell you, I always had the warm and fuzzies and the feelers out there about all things, super sensitive, sponge to the world kind of vibes. But now that I've gone through shit, it makes me want to do more for other people. And it makes me want to do more for my family. And it makes me a better mom. So yeah, it's totally why I'm on the platform that I am. Because when you're down here, getting a few insults on a post, like this was my creative outlet. It was kind of my therapy. As dysfunctional as that may sound to other people who don't get it, I needed a creative outlet when I was going through divorce, pandemic, home with the kids, loss of job. This was like my happy, goofy, Nikki middle schooler self was on here.
Right.
And that's just what's allowed me to share myself with a bigger group of friends.
Yeah. Yes. Millions, billions. I think too, becoming a mom, a new mom, it's so interesting to try to find people in your tribe because there's so many different people who do things so differently. And I think the best thing about you is like, you're like, oh, she gets it. I've done that too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the coffee mug that doesn't fit into the, the center console and I'm holding it while I'm screaming at my kids in the back and everything's just a mess. I get that.
Yeah.
I feel seen. And I love that you're putting that out there because a lot of times before this, we weren't talking about it. Before social media, we weren't seeing the mess. Have you found people connect with that?
Ton? I think it's why people love, I love the show The Office, right? So it's observational humor. It's like being in the moment and looking at yourself and being like, holy shit, this is where it's at. This is where it's at. And just being able to laugh at that. That's always been my love language. My family were so sarcastic to each other, my mom's side. And I'm that way with my kids now. So it's funny going online and not knowing if people understand your delivery, and then they do. So it's like, oh my God, it's like, I never thought of that. I never thought of my outfits in the morning at the school bus stop as like Adam Sandler, in the flesh. So.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think it's amazing. And like, I believe every woman has some sort of postpartum at some point. And I think like being able to see someone and hear someone and then see the community behind that someone also be like, you're not alone. I think that's like, it sounds so corny and woo-woo, but it's an amazing thing. Like you are doing a service to the world, ma'am.
I just don't take life so seriously or myself so seriously to not do it. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's like I'm getting these credits and I'm getting these like compliments from you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just so like, it doesn't take a lot for me to do that. You know what I mean? My friends have known me this way my whole life. So it almost makes me feel funny where they're looking at me like, of course you're doing this. This was meant for you. Right. So you feel a little guilty where you're like, it's not a hard thing for me to do. You hear all these content creators, how hard it is, how much you have to put into it, how many, the editing process and I'm like, I will never say that I have to work. This is now my way of making a living, and the competitor in me and the success-driven person in me is like, okay, what's next? But it's like I get to be a mom first, which is the craziest part of all this.
Which is amazing. How do your kids take with like a mom, a famous mom?
So I get made fun of sometimes by them, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I pray that when they are old enough to have social media, I pray they're making fun of me. I want the compilations and the montages of like, here's mom when she oh, please.
Right.
Please make fun of me forever. Film me at Disney acting like a complete spaz when I get like the best avocado margarita, right? In Epcot. Like, so how they take it depends on the day. When we went to a movie premiere in New York, don't get me wrong, they think this is normal. So I'm reminding them, do you know this isn't normal? Do you know how lucky we are? Mm-hmm. And then there are other moments where I wonder how it feels for them to have grown women coming up to their mom being like, oh my God, I love you. Oh my God, your mom's the best. That's the part that like scares me a little.
Why?
Because when you're a kid, you're selfish. You don't care if like people think your mom's the great. You're like, okay, lady, whatever. So I try to be cautious about how much I make it feel like a big deal. I'm kind to people because that's the way I am, but I don't put myself on a pedestal, and I kind of like downplay when people say hi to me. I don't want to, oh my God, thank you so much.
Right.
Because think about when you were a kid. Imagine being a kid and people running up to your mom.
Yeah, Barb.
It's a little funny.
Big Barb would just...
My mom's living for this, by the way. We're talking about my kids. My mom, living. My mom loves when, like, you Nikki's mom, she's like, yes.
In fact, I am.
Yes, want to take a picture? And she does.
Do you have a pen? I'll sign it.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool that the Netflix thing, my kids got to meet a few kids that they recognize from YouTube.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know. We'll see in a few years. I'm cautious about them being in content because that's like a big dirty thing right now. So I'm very careful about that. And I'm also becoming more careful about what they watch, knowing what I know about kids being on content.
Yeah. It's a wild west in a lot of ways.
It is.
For sure. And it seems like, I'm sitting here with you and you're like, you have so many layers to you, right? Like your brain's going and then it's going over here and then there's something there, which maybe it's the ADHD, but
it is
I
a little
also
bit of
think
everything.
but I truly also think like that's the creative piece. And like, there's always something happening. How do you turn off? Do you turn off?
I will wake up in the middle of the night thinking of random shit. No, it doesn't turn off. I am conscious to slow it down. Like I was saying to you and Ian before this, I'm like, I think I'm in the luteal phase. I'm feeling crazy. And so there are times that I can feel the moon. And I'm like, Nikki, sit in a fucking corner in the dark room and just shh.
That internal talk, we got to bottle and sell that. That's the thing.
I can tell when I'm acting spastic or when my brain is feeling, and it's usually in here. It's usually in the dead pit of my stomach where I'm like, girl, it's in a knot. There's no emergency anywhere right now.
This is what I've been literally teaching. I swear to God. Visceral, your body feels it viscerally. Does Nicki Marie need to tell you guys this for you guys to finally listen to me? This, like, everything I teach is something that you're living and you are aware of it. And you have the words to tell people like, hey, pay attention to your body. You cannot change your feelings. Your feelings are your feelings, but your behavior matters. How you respond is different than how you react. And you want to choose a response versus a reaction. Like, and it's amazing. I hear this from you. I'm like, she's a psychologist. She doesn't know it.
I wanted to be, but there was too much school for me.
Well, guess what?
There was too much school for me. I was like,
you didn't need the school and the loans and all the other stuff.
I appreciate that. I just think you got to follow some of your intuition, right?
And it's interesting because I feel like people don't have it all the time. Like it gets lost underneath, whether it's I came from a bad household and that voice was snuffed out, or I don't know, like I've been wrong so many times, or I had a bad partnership or whatever. Like I find that people have lost their voice.
Okay, so can I ask you something?
Please.
Because I think this could be good for other people, but I also want to hear your take on it. My intuition is what leads me in parenthood. But then the outside noise makes me feel like, oh, I don't know if this is the right way. So I'll give you an example. Went to New York City for a night. Train got canceled on the way back. Had to stay an extra night in New York City. It sounds awful, but when you're in that moment at the train station with just me and my 8 and 10-year-old, what do we do? Mm-hmm. We don't have a place to stay. I have to self-regulate to let my kids see me be a problem solver. Mm-hmm. I don't think us as parents, especially like moms who carry a lot more, we just do. We carry the more emotional moment of that. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit of like what a good job we're doing in those moments. I wanted to throw a tangent like a kid and be like, fucking train. And I was like, it's okay. It's going to be fine. We're going to probably have to. And I talked through it with them, which I tapped myself later. I'm like, that you did a really fucking good job. Mm-hmm. But here's the question. We get back after the unexpected night. We missed the train again. Not missed the train. The train got canceled again yesterday. We had to rent a car, take an Uber, an hour across the city to get the car. Anyway, I'm getting to the point of the story, which is my daughter couldn't wait to get home and get to gymnastics on time.
Oh.
Went to 2 hours of gymnastics. That's like grit.
Oof.
My son could not go to school today. Okay, so we're talking about all this intuition stuff and this feeler, right? I'm trying to give my son what I know I need as a human. And so my question to you is, we tried to drop him off. He wouldn't go. We're talking a kid who's got a lot of perfectionism, which I know you know about. So he wouldn't go. And I'm talking fit, anxiety, the whole thing. So the outside world is telling me, oh God, all these anxious kids, we're like coddling them. We got to push them. They got to be more gritty. And then there's me saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go home. We're going to take a nice hot shower. I'm going to make you a good breakfast. You're going to just sit down and you're going to like reset. And then we're going to see how you feel about going to school. And I'm giving him these things that I feel intuitively like he needs and deserves. But then there's the flip side. I'm like, am I going to raise an incapable human being who cannot, right? So I don't know how you'd like look at that for parents.
I think it's, you have to know your kid. You said it perfectly of one can do it. One's ready to do it. One is telling me, get me to gymnastics.
Oh, she couldn't wait to get to school today.
Right. And the other one is saying like, I'm not that kid. And I don't think that's a wrong thing. I think when we try to force kids into boxes that they don't belong in, other fallout happens. But I truly believe that in that moment, you showed compassion for him to feel safe because it was a lot. This wasn't like, I don't want to go to school because it's Monday.
I know.
It's different.
Yeah.
Context matters. So I truly believe like whatever it is you got going on, you were able to see what he needed and you were able to fill that or help him fill that or feel safe enough to fill that so he could then go on and do great things.
Yeah.
That's important.
I like that. I want parents to feel seen and heard with how they're caring for their kids, because a lot of the moms who are loving so deeply are also feeling like, right, the world of today's generation is so soft. There's just so much noise, and all we could do is like, we're not doing it wrong for like loving our kids and hearing and honoring their emotional needs.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between helping and enabling, right?
Yeah.
Enabling is I'm going to do it all for you all of the time, and you're not going to learn anything. Helping is, let me make that call with you. Yeah. Let's do this together, and then we're going to see about school. Like, you get this day, but you're not getting tomorrow, so you better fucking figure it out.
Right. Right.
Get it together.
So in like confident people that you work with, right? We're talking about the success and all that stuff, the success driven. Do you feel like a lot of people come from that secure
Depends.
families?
Sometimes the motivation is like, I was not secure, so I'm going to have everything inside of me to make that for myself because I didn't have it. And some people are like, yes, very well adjusted. I need to high perform because that's what we do. We high perform. So it's very different, and they handle things differently. A lot of times the behavior, that's why I come in. I'm not helping you be a better surgeon, doctor, whatever. I'm helping you with like the behaviors and how you think and how you process and how you communicate. So I do think that there's something to be said about people who know themselves and then they can do what they need for themselves and the people around them.
Yep.
So
I love that.
No, you're making sense to me. Let me ask you this. What advice would you give to people out there going through fallout, going through the darkest time in their life, like trying to find that light?
I mean, the most tangible thing I could give people that works for me are there's two things that are actual takeaways. One, to write on a Post-it note the three things that it could be the three things you believe in, the three things your household runs on, just three things that are going to remind you of who you are. Every room you walk in, you put it above that doorway. And it's like, just if you're off, it's the reminder of who you are, what you stand for, what you're doing, right? So it's like the vision board kind of thing, but above every doorway. And then the second thing was the inner child. I love the inner child stuff. So I've put a picture of like little Nikki up on like the bathroom mirror to be like, you're doing this for her too. Because we all still are kids,
100%.
But like for some reason we put a little more grace on ourselves when we think of ourselves as that little person. So you've got to do it for the kid in you deserves a great future.
Get out your Post-its, get out your old school pictures, and get to taping people. Final question. What is your favorite F word?
Fuck.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, not in the physical form, just in the wow. Yeah.
It's just such an expression.
I never used to swear a lot, and now I do. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
They say it's a characteristic of highly intelligent people.
Well, we're going with that then.
I wonder who did the study. A bunch of people are like, fucking, yeah, that's right. We're fucking super intelligent.
There are so many things that are like, you're more likely to I'm like, okay, another freaking, what guinea pigs did they take into that room?
Too many studies, too many different people. Thank you for joining us on Feelings and Other F Words. It was amazing having you. Thank you for being here. And I'm excited to see what pops up on my screen next.
Yes, I got you, girl. We'll be talking about this tomorrow, probably.
Love it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.